Good morning, Unitarian Universalists of Sarasota and Lakewood Ranch, and any visitors joining us today. I'm Beth Miller, one of the associate ministers here, and I welcome you to today's service, whether you're viewing us live this morning, Sunday morning, or watching us at a later time on YouTube. In any case, welcome. It's good to have you. If you're visiting us today, we're glad you're here, and we hope that you will come back. If you haven't already found it, please take a look at the visitors page on our website, accessible from the home page of our website. Follow the links to find lots of information about the church and about Unitarian Universalism. Sign up for our weekly newsletter called Contact and to receive our email invitations to the many weekly offerings that we have on Zoom. And if you have questions or you want to talk to one of our ministers, our contact information is on that homepage as well. Just scroll down to Pastoral Care and Connection and you'll find how to get in touch with any of the ministers. Members of the worship team joining me in today's service are the senior minister, the Reverend Doug Wadkins, who will be offering the sermon pre-recorded today. Catherine Bonner, our Director of Religious Education, and our musicians, Don Bryn and Robert Laschetti, and our masked choir members, Kathy Cyrus, Jan Dorset, and Paul Lewis. Thank you for being with us, you guys. And, of course, Klaus Obermeit and Doug Caldwell, our tech team. Our virtual coffee hour is back this morning. Please join us on Zoom at 11:30 for an opportunity to visit informally with one another and with me and whoever else is there from the staff. The login was sent out yesterday, and it is in the same Zoom room as the forum is. I hope to see many of you there. And I would be remiss in not inviting you to make a donation today. When we were together, if we were together today here in the sanctuary, our ushers would pass the baskets later in the service as Don Bryn plays the offertory music. But for now, the basket is still on the homepage of our website. Later, as you enjoy Don's offertory music, please decide to go online after today's service and click the link. Our ongoing operations depend on the generosity of our members and friends. Following the prelude, we will be lighting the chalice. And if you have a chalice or even just a candle at home, I hope you'll light it along with us at that time. And finally, as we begin worship this morning, let's take a moment to acknowledge the 20th anniversary of 9/11, when planes flew into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, and another plane headed for Washington, D.C., crashed in Pennsylvania, taken down by brave crew members and passengers. You've heard and read about this significant anniversary all week. Reverend Bud, who represents our church on the Sarasota Ministerial Association, and I processed with clergy last night at the commemoration of 9/11 at the Sarasota National Cemetery. There's nothing I can add to our reflection that hasn't already been said all week long, that you haven't thought of yourself as well. So as Don plays our prelude now, let's hold in our hearts this anniversary and those that were lost and affected by that in so many ways.
Let us now light our chalice. I invite those of you at home who have a candle or a chalice handy to go ahead and light it as we say our chalice lighting reflection words and then about our principle. The chalice lighting words are "Let Astonishment Be Possible" by Reverend Gretchen Haley. Whatever you have come in anticipating, whatever you expect or worry, for our world, for the future, for our lives, let it go. Make space in your heart to be surprised. Make room in your soul for a new story to take shape. Let astonishment be possible at this life that remains a miracle. Imagine here the bursting of joy, relentless and resilient, coming in waves, washing over us with music and story and silence. And still this dreaming together, being hope for each other and courage to believe in this new day dawning for us all. Come, let us worship together. We light the chalice this morning in recognition of our fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. This year, we have marked the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. A whole generation has been born and raised since then, yet that day changed all of us. Today in our religious education Zoom call, we'll be talking about fairness and that life often is just not fair. This past week, I have considered 9/11, the topic of fairness, the Jewish Yom Kippur, and today's topic of exploring the possibilities. And I'd like to read to you a story I adapted from the book, The Wish Tree by Catherine Applegate. For a long time, people in the neighborhood have called me the Wish Tree. Every year on May 1st, people come from all over town to adorn me with scraps of paper, tags, bits of fabric, snippets of yarn, and the occasional gem sock. Each offering represents a dream, a desire, a longing. They're all hopes for something better. It's an honor to carry all those wishes on my tired limbs. I have stood for over a century shading my houses, one painted blue with a black door and one painted green with a brown door. Same small size, same boxy shape, architectural twins. In January, Samar moved with her parents into the tiny blue house. She's 10 years old with wary eyes and a shy smile. Samar has the look of someone who has seen too much, someone who wants the world to quiet itself. Soon after moving in, Samar began sneaking into the yard at night. She would stare at the moon and at me, and sometimes at the little greenhouse next door where a boy who looks to be about her age lives. Then one night when Samar came, her cheeks were damp, and in her hand was a small piece of cloth, pink with little dots. Samar reached up and gently pulled down my branch and tied the fabric in a loose knot. "I wish," she whispered, "for a friend." She glanced over at the greenhouse before going inside. My heart went out to Samar. When Samar's family rented the blue house, it was clear they were from a distant country. Their ways were unfamiliar, their words held new music. Just another transplant in our messy garden, it seemed. Except that this time, something changed. The air was uneasy. The parents in the greenhouse refused to welcome the new family. There were polite nods between the adults at first, but even those have vanished. Other things happened. Someone threw raw eggs at the blue house. And one afternoon, a car passed by filled with angry men yelling angry things. Things like, "Muslims, get out." Sometimes Samar would walk home trailed by children taunting her. And yet, a few days after Samar's tearful wish, something happened that made me wonder if I had finally witnessed too much. The morning was budding, and Samar and the boy who lived in the greenhouse, Stephen, stepped out onto their porches at the same time, and their eyes met. Stephen nodded, just a flicker, And Samar nodded back. Not a hello, just an acknowledgement. As I watched Stephen run off to school, a lanky boy walked towards me with a tool or a pen in his hand. Wham! He dug into my trunk. Fast, deliberate. He looked around nervously before running away. A mother tugging a toddler along the sidewalk froze in place when she saw my trunk. Mommy, what does that say? Asked the little girl. It says leave, she finally said. Like trees have leaves? Asked the little girl. The mom looked at the two houses near me, and she shook her head, and she tightened her grip on the little girl's hand, and she said, let's hope that's all that means. Well, it didn't take long for folks to learn about the ugly word carved into my trunk. People stopped to stare, gathered in little groups, grimaced, and shook their heads. When Samar saw the word that afternoon, she gasped, didn't say a word, just went into her blue house, head held high, standing tall and reaching deep. That night, Samar and Stephen met under my branches. I'm sorry about that word, Stephen said softly. The word on the tree. We didn't, it wasn't us. My parents aren't bad people. They're just afraid of things, Stephen shrugged. So are mine, said Samar. I heard my father talking about moving, if we can find a safe place to go. She gave a sad smile. If there is even such a place. I'm sorry, Stephen said again. I hope you don't move. Finally, another wishing day arrived. People started as a trickle and then came in large groups. And within an hour, I was covered with the word stay. Extra wishes lay on the ground beneath me, piled like blossoms. Wishes made their way onto the porches, the railings, the sidewalk. So this was your idea, Samar asked Stephen. I had a lot of help, he said. Samar looked over at her parents. I don't know if this will change anything, she said. And Stephen looked over at his parents, and he said, me neither. Thank you, though, Samar said, at least for trying. So if this was a fairy tale, I'd tell you that something magical happened that wishing day. The world changed and we would all live happily ever after. But this is real life. And real life, like a good garden, is messy. Some things have changed, some things haven't. Still, optimist that I am, I'm feeling hopeful about the future. Stephen and Samar have become very good friends. Their parents still don't talk to one another, and I'm not sure that they ever will, but the possibility is there. And now let us sing our opening hymn, 126.
Streams
Now is the time in our service for centering, for becoming fully present here in this time and place with one another in worship. I have words to share, followed by a time of silence, and then we'll sing together, Spirit of Life. The words are Song of the Universe by the Reverend Manish Mishra Marzetti. He writes, "For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Listen carefully. Can you hear the song? The one sung for you when you were born. The song sung by a cosmos in motion, rejoicing at your life. You, the result. You, the outcome. You, the celebration. Listen carefully. Can you hear it still? A song of possibility. A reminder that we still have time to be who and what we need to be. Listen carefully. The vast expanse echoes a recognition that it's not always easy. Possibilities can be hard to pursue. Roads not taken, wrong turns, destinations that disappoint. Through this song, the song persists. The universe sings no less because time, space wear us thin. The music calls us to recognize our limitations, to recognize the song is best sung with others. Here in community, bringing alive that most primordial and original impulse, the desire to sing to the universe who we are, to celebrate and share our lives with others. Can you hear the song? Now listen. All around you is a chorus of other songs, each a celebration. Let us be together in silence.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my exploration with you about embracing possibilities. And let me begin by explaining why I am speaking to you from my home and not from the sanctuary. I just returned from a trip that had been planned for a very long time and was very important to me, and that I am deeply grateful for. And it was planned when I got back that I would be tested for COVID after taking such a long plane ride. And when I was tested, I got back the results that my tests were positive for COVID, much to my surprise. And so for the next couple of weeks, I will be in quarantine. It reminded me, as I thought about the experience so far, how difficult it must have been for those folks who, before there was a vaccination, that had to encounter COVID, and for those folks who still are unable, for a variety of reasons, to be vaccinated. And so I'm grateful to be vaccinated and making my journey through COVID with that extra assistance. I'm also aware that this particular topic of embracing possibility seems especially important to me personally now. And so I'm very grateful to have the chance to explore it for a few minutes with you. So in my newsletter article about this theme, I talk about how our tradition really did its own embracing of possibility, both sides of our tradition from the very beginning, both Unitarians and Universalists. Unitarians coming at it from the perspective of what was possible in the human endeavor, such as affirming a sense of what humans could do when they access their best selves, their best thoughts, their best collaboration. And they were clear that what made the historical figure of Jesus so meaningful is that he was a human being, exemplifying what is possible in terms of redefining social and religious order. The Universalist side of our tradition put its faith in the force of love that was so committed to possibility that it refused to give up on any part of creation, even when the going gets tough, perhaps especially then. There is always more possible in the world, said our Universalist forebears. And on the larger side of possibility of what it means to embrace that deeper understanding of possibility, I am recording this on September 11th, 2021. And this weekend, I'm very aware of this. And I am so blessed that I've had the chance to revisit it because it is now in video version and is available on streaming. And if you ever have the chance to partake in it, whether it's in a live production or to see it, it is worth your time. Because it is a work of art about a historical event, it invites us to see the larger implications of our history. The play tells the story of all of the planes that were grounded on September 11th, 2001, and how quite a few of those planes, hundreds of them from all over the world, were routed to land on a small island in Newfoundland. People from all over the world with so many life circumstances found themselves thrown together that day and in the coming days. And there were so many possibilities about what might have happened, and certainly not all of them good, to say the least. But the people in that small community of Gander, Newfoundland, and the surrounding communities accepted the possibility of offering and opening their homes and giving radical hospitality to these strangers. The play presents this historical moment as a significant metaphor, that this planet is its own island. And in each moment, for good or for ill, we are offered all sorts of possibilities for ourselves and for each other. And the play is also clear that with the addition of some goodwill and compassion, much good and life-changing possibility is present, even in what might otherwise be some of the most dire moments. The play does a tremendous job of illustrating these truths by concentrating on both the very individual stories and the larger epic truths of the events of September 11th. And the cast is intentionally a collective of very ordinary looking people and a relatively small cast. So they play both the islanders and the visitors, also powerfully symbolic. So, in the theme of embracing possibility, on one hand, we begin with some of these larger than life visions of what it means to embrace all that can happen in our lives. It is part of our source material. But Soul Matters, the theme material that we use in exploring our themes, also reminds us that most of how we live out these possibilities is in a much more personal realm. Here's how one of the Soul Matters members puts the challenge of embracing possibility. When I think of possibility, I think of all the people and opportunities we close the door on, such as, quote, I will never see eye to eye with my sister, or, quote, I couldn't possibly leave this job to start my own business, or I will never have close friends like I had where I used to live, or I will never really make a difference. So why bother? We tell ourselves so many small stories about who we are and who others are, and so many tiny tales of what the world could be. And part of it has to do with, yes, some real life defeats, but often a bigger part of it is how it is that we have let those experiences give us continued imagination of fear and a desire to protect ourselves from those possibilities in the future. Now, there's comfort in convincing ourselves that our effort is hopeless, that way we don't really have to try and risk failure, hurt, or disappointment again. But when it is all said and done, this theme posits that we are the quintessential faith tradition of embracing possibility. And you don't have to believe that claim 100% to see that, especially now, on this weekend, in this time in history, the practice of embracing possibility may be a crucial tool for us all. So, for a few moments in two smaller parts, I want to explore some entry points to this theme. I hope that in exploring them today, it will help you find your own ways to think about the theme more meaningfully. I will explore more about the theme broadly in the coming weeks, but all of it in service to building some sense of depth with this theme. And each of you finding your own way of connecting and moving more meaningfully into the heart of that connective place for you. And reminding ourselves that part of the gift of community is that we each have our own way of contributing to the larger truth that everything, every deeper possibility gives to us. And so by sharing it as a community over these coming weeks, we deepen what is possible not only for ourselves, but in a much larger context. So, what are some of the ways that embracing possibility might be meaningful to us here and now? And what are some practices that might help us draw closer to possibility in our own life, in the larger life? We begin with the practice of embracing the possibility of a new day. Henry David Thoreau wrote in Walden, "We must learn to reawaken and keep ourselves awake, not by mechanical aids, but by an infinite expectation of the dawn, which does not forsake us even in our soundest sleep." The core building block of this theme is that it has deeper implications for our larger life, our legacy, and our history. But at its core, it is rooted always in the now. It begins with something as simple and everyday as how you regard the start of each and every day as it greets you. If we have the good fortune to awaken to a new day, we each have that gift before us. But we each also bring our own experience of life, our own preconceived notions of our own lives to bear. And that makes a huge difference in how we approach that day. Whatever we can do to keep our perception of what lies ahead rooted in a spirit of expansiveness and profound places of connection with what really matters, the more likely we will see, create, and live out a more hopeful understanding of the possibilities that come with the rising of the sun each morning. In our reading earlier from Manish Mishra Marzetti, the Song of the Universe, he talks about a perspective that may indeed be even older than who we are individually, that sense of a song that lives in each of us. He writes, "Can you hear the song, the one sung for you when you were born? Listen carefully. Can you hear it still? A song of possibility, a reminder that we still have time to be who and what we need to be." So one of the perspectives or practices that best helps us greet the new day is this understanding that somewhere deeply and innately in who we are is this sense that our life is continuing to unfold. But what is a part of our life all through it is the possibility of continuing to be more ourselves and more who we came to this planet to be, whether we know what that is or not. As long as we continue to live, we have that possibility of living into that more fully. And if we can begin at least some of our mornings with that perspective more often, what a difference it would make in how we make our way day into day, month into month. And there's been a fair amount of exploration about the real life implications of how we approach each and every day and what it makes possible for us. In the work of Benjamin Zander, a psychologist, he explored what it was that helped people see in their lives possibility and what tended to inhibit in just a typical person's life the ability to see options, to see greater good being available to them. And he wrote, in the measurement world, you set a goal and strive for it. But he says, in the universe of possibility, you set the context and let life unfold. In other words, he believes that in many ways you come to understand the context of the particular time that you are in as best as you can. But you realize that to a great extent, you let it continue to do its work, and you do your best within that context to participate with it, and probably to offer your best gifts to it day in and day out. He continues, how often do we stand convinced of the truth of our early memories, forgetting that they are assessments made by a child? We can replace the narratives that hold us back by inventing wiser stories, free from childish fears, and in doing so, disperse long-held psychological stumbling blocks. It's actually very similar to some of the work that tends to be lost in the impact of Judith Wallerstein, who explored in the 1980s the impact of divorce on children. And mostly what is remembered from that study, which was often greatly vilified, was that in many cases, divorce had a better impact on the adults involved than it did necessarily for the children. But what she also emphasized, and again, is that what made all of the difference, though, is what a child from whatever circumstance, but certainly from a divorce circumstance, did with their understanding of that time in their life. And that children who were able to leave behind some of the entrapped understandings of what happened in that period of their life and bring a more mature understanding of what happened in their parents' lives and what it might mean for their own possibilities, the more likely that those children could grow into adulthood from divorce with a much healthier perspective, actually, of relationship. What she was clear about was that in reality, for at least at the time she did her study, it was difficult for children. But she spent enough time with it to realize that what made all of the difference really for children was over time how they took that life experience and they let it mature into a deeper understanding. That continues, I believe, to be true in all aspects of our life. In this theme of embracing possibility, we begin with some very direct and deceptively powerful but simple building blocks. And we take those places, such as how it is that we greet each day, how we think about where we are now in our lives, how we take some of the past truths of our experiences and use them as a building block for deeper wisdom instead of always just a cautionary tale about why risk may result in failure. Those simple building blocks, when put together in a sense of courage and possibility, can bring about greater good. So, in some ways, what I think this theme asks of us is to give life some sense of space. And within that space, to find ways to practice seeing a greater sense of grace or possibility within what is. As Henry Frederick Ariel wrote, "Let mystery have its place in you. Do not be always turning up your whole soil with a plowshare of self-examination, but leave a little fallow corner in your heart ready for any seed the winds may bring, and reserve a nook of shadow for the passing bird. Keep a place in your heart for the unexpected guest, an altar for an unknown God." So let's take just a few moments of space and pause as we move into our offertory. What is it that is true for you in terms of how you greet each day? How much are you able to allow there to be some space for other possibilities? How much are you able to let what you've experienced have its truth, but know that's only part of the story? We'll be back in a few minutes to continue with the last point of the sermon. So for my final point today, I invite us to think about yet another opportunity that this theme offers. I believe it invites us to think in larger ways than what often might be called the success or failure paradigms in our lives. Embracing in our theme is not a very selective term. It is an idea not of carefully culling good pieces of grain from the bad ones to create possibility. Embracing is to draw ourselves close to what actually is, all that is. It is a wonderful gift, yes, to awaken to a morning and greet it with an open mind and an open heart. But the thing is, however we greet it, possibility is still there. And what's more, sometimes some of the most powerful work is done in ways that do not seem to be delightful things. Heather Warman reminds us, for a seed to achieve its greatest expression, it must come completely undone. The shell cracks, its insides come out, and everything changes. To someone who doesn't understand growth, it would look like complete destruction. Part of what the gift of this theme gives to us as a reminder that possibility is always at work within us, through us, and around us. And so many of us, myself included, tend to divide our efforts and our outcomes into cut and dried experiences of either we succeeded on this day or we failed on this day or in this moment or in this effort. And yet, whichever way we perceive that it is gone, no matter how well we think we did, that doesn't mean that all of the possibilities set in motion are good for us or for other people. And for that matter, no matter how much we think we screwed up what we just did, that doesn't mean that what we have set in motion for ourselves or for others will not bring about great good. And so it brings a sort of humility to the work. It brings a sort of sense of don't be too quick to judge yourself in the midst of how you make your way through your life. And on this anniversary, on the weekend of September 11, 2001, we can both acknowledge that some powerful moments of healing and greater good and some significant seeds of distrust and destruction were sown in those events. And in this time, we are aware of all of the many ways that this world and this country is at a place yet again of much possibility for seemingly similar polar extremes. Charles Eisenstein wrote very wisely, "For years, normality has been stretched nearly to its breaking point, a rope pulled tighter and tighter, waiting for the nip of the black swan's beak to snap it in two. Now that the rope has snapped, do we tie its ends back together, or shall we undo its dangling braids still further to see what we might weave from them?" So part of what embracing possibility asks of us in light of larger events is that we have to trust that there is some ongoing set of possibilities that we can never know, and that we must therefore give ourselves to the good that we can do, knowing that it will never be the full story, and knowing that when we mess up, for all we know, we may have actually contributed to something, but nonetheless, we can learn from it and move forward, knowing that there's always more involved in the story. Embracing possibility on a global scale reminds us how much is always in the process of coming undone and mending, and that the people on this relatively small island of the planet Earth make a huge difference, yes, in the choices towards openness and kindness, and most certainly in this time, mutual responsibility, and possibility will continue to do its work. And in our own lives, to embrace possibility is to accept life for what it is in every moment. It does not mean that our own choices and our own lives are unimportant, but always only part of the larger story. And that is humbling, yes, but it is also a gift, because we may never know when someone else's choice may be life-giving or life-saving for us, just as we never know for certain what we have set in motion may do for others. It means that we do the best we can. and we continue to learn what is best and what we can do. But we also have the humility to know that we never fully understand ourselves, much less each other. And so that deeper sense of looking at so much of what happens in life as either a success or a failure may not always serve us well. That we should be careful about how quick we are to decide if someone else's choices really is a failure or a success on their part. And certainly in our own lives, where we have an even more complete sense of the story, even then, we don't always know fully what is at play in our lives. And this theme helps us move into that truth and spend some time with it to see what it says to us now and in this place. As long as we continue to live and breathe, we participate in possibility. So much of what we regard as our successes may not have opened any more possibility for ourselves and others than moments when we feel we did not connect with our better selves or our best work. And while we are uncomfortable with the realities of how little ultimately we control about our lives, when we are able to accept the vulnerability of that is also a great gift. We realize that it opens yet even more possibility in our ability to see within moments where we think we have screwed up little seeds of hope. And in moments when we're so certain we have done the right thing, the humbleness to realize that there may have also been some not so great things that is set in motion for other people. For me, it just helps me think about life in a more honest and real and balanced way. I mean, in this particular time when I am thinking very definitely about my own personal health, I'm aware of, in this last year, I've been very thoughtful about the trips that I have taken. And the trips that I've decided to do were always for me very important. And so that thoughtfulness is essential, but it doesn't mean necessarily that there is an absolute right or wrong in them. But more always, that possibility has been at work and continues to be at work in my life and in yours. So in this month, I invite us to explore what it is that we understand possibility to be for ourselves, what it is that community tells us about a deeper understanding of possibility in our lives, what it means to be close to it, to embrace it, to let our lives be what it is, move deeply into it, and see what it asks of us. Finally, Rebecca Solnit wrote this: when a caterpillar enters its chrysalis, it dissolves itself, quite literally, into liquid. In this state, what was a caterpillar and will be a butterfly is neither one or the other. It is a sort of living soup. Within this living soup are the imaginal cells that will catalyze its transformation into winged maturity. May the best among us, the most visionary, the most inclusive, be the imaginal cells, for we are in the soup. The outcomes of disasters is not foreordained. It's a conflict, one that takes place while things that were frozen, solid, and locked up have become open and fluid, full of the best and worst possibilities. May that truth hold us as we explore together this month possibility. So may it be.
On the road
closing words are from the Reverend Sarah Lawal. When the pull to disappear takes hold with all its harsh realities, may we conjure up that fierce love to bring our hope and vision into being, discovering the humanity, bravery, goodness still calling us forth. May we breathe into that story and make it come alive. As we extinguish the flame this morning, let us carry its warmth and light, its inspiration and aspiration in our hearts into the week ahead. So may it be. Amen.